Happy Friday, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about teachers. It's Friday. It's a good day for teachers, hopefully. Although right now teachers are doing way more work than they're used to be doing, and so I thought it would be nice to just take a day and talk about teachers. Talk about why we all love our teachers. I'm going to be joined by Nick Ferroni here in a couple minutes. Who's a teacher himself, and I just wanted to take today to just pause and answer some questions. You all submitted a ton of questions about teaching right now, both from teachers all across the country, trying to make accommodations to parents who are stuck at home, wondering what to do, how to accommodate their kids. Sometimes parents have kids of multiple ages, and just wondering how can I work full-time, maybe your spouse is working full-time, and teach full-time now as well. I talked a lot about education on the campaign trail. Education means a lot to me as a teacher myself, and I went into education out of the arts. So I went into theater in college and started teaching theater out of college and discovered how much I loved being in the classroom. And it reminded me of my high school teacher, Mrs. Bach, who I really give a lot of credit to for truly saving my life in high school. It was a terrible time for me. It was really tough. I got picked on a lot, and the theater is where I thrived. I loved being in her classroom, and that's what I loved about teaching. It wasn't necessarily the content. It was being that person in the room who made kids feel understood. And knowing that your kids wanted to come to your classroom because they felt like they could be their true selves there. And that's just one thing teachers do. It's not just about what content you're teaching in the classroom, but it's about how you make your kids feel. And I believe students won't always remember what you taught them, but they will definitely remember how you made them feel. So we don't have a lot of time today, so I want to jump in. I want to bring Nick in, and we're just going to chat a little bit about what he's doing, what teaching looks like for him, some of your questions. Hey there.
What's up? How you doing, Chasten?
Good. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Is it Friday? It's usually as teachers you can tell when it's Friday, but now I think every day seems the same at this point.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter anymore, does it? Pete is trying to like have a difference between weekdays and weekend days, but it's all the same.
Yeah, every day is Groundhog's Day.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. You're very visible on Twitter and Instagram, basically on social media. You talk a lot about teachers, about the craft of teaching. You elevate a lot of stories in education. But before we jump into some of the questions, I'm wondering if you can tell everybody just a little bit about yourself and where you are and how you found your way to teaching.
Okay, I'm currently in Weehawken, New Jersey, so I have the best view of the city. For my Hamilton fans, my theater fans, I live right across the street from Hamilton Park, and that is where the duel between Burr and Hamilton actually took place.
Wow.
So there's some historical aspect to it. I grew up in New Jersey. I'm in my 17th year as a teacher. I'm a Jersey boy. I actually teach at the high school I went to.
No joke.
Then I went, yeah, you too?
No, I said no joke. That's cool.
Oh, okay. So, and then I went on to Rutgers where I was on the football team. So my parents growing up were very blue collar. They're like, we can't afford, to my brother and myself, like, we can't afford to send you to school. So you have to be really athletic or you have to get really good grades. So me and my brother obviously chose the athletic route. But once I got into college and I started taking my history classes and my education related courses, I always kind of knew I wanted to be a teacher. I always wanted to mentor people. And I am who I am because of my kindergarten teacher and my high school history teachers. I would say I was blessed to have multiple mothers and multiple fathers in my lifetime who mentored me. But I would say Indiana Jones kind of also gave me a passion for history growing up in the 90s and kind of seen that archaeology adventure. But I always knew I wanted to be in education in some way. Like you, however, I ended up after college waiting for a teaching job. I ended up falling into acting and I worked on a soap for a little while. I figured it was only a matter of time before they realized how bad I was. At the same time of working on the soap, a teaching job opened up my old high school. So I actually left the TV show, which I was making a decent amount of money as a day player, to go back and teach in high school. But what most people don't realize, Chasten, is teaching is performing. We're putting on 6 shows a day to an audience that's that may not want to be there. And our job is to not only relay our passion, but to convince them that they should be there. And it's like, it's one of those things where it is performance. All great teachers could be good actors, but not all great actors could be good teachers. But I'm now in my 17th year, and like you, I do have a big platform. Anytime I do any press, the last person I talk about is myself. All I do is meet amazing teachers. This country is full of them. I use my platform to kind of elevate teachers every chance I get because it's so inspiring. So my platform is kind of like what you're doing, is we meet those educators doing all the amazing work, and we just celebrate them because we are in this together.
Absolutely. And as someone who only spent a few years in education before, I went out on the campaign trail, something I loved doing out on the campaign trail was just coming into schools or community centers and listening to teachers, because I think teachers are so tired of being talked at or treated sort of just like a monolithic community, and especially taken for granted during elections. And, teaching and education looks so different depending on your zip code or where you are in the country. And so I know we have a lot to jump into and a lot to cover, but I just wanted to share, this moment with you today, just to talk a little bit about the tremendous things teachers are doing, celebrate them, maybe give some tips and tricks to parents at home who are trying to figure out how to be teachers, and really elevate the voices of the teachers we respect and admire so much. I was wondering, what do you teach? And then tell everybody what you teach. And then how does it look different for you now during COVID?
So I teach U.S. history, cultural studies, which is an amazing course. And I teach history through pop culture and mass media, where we kind of break down to how music, TV, and film throughout history, even cartoons and newspapers, have shaped people's opinions about race, gender, inequality, even immigration. Both amazing courses. How has it changed? What people don't realize is, again, so many educators lose sleep worrying about their students. Like, we care so much. The interaction. Like, as much as students say things that may annoy us at times, like the annoying moments, like those are the things we miss the most about those connections we make with students. The students who can't wait to come into your class and ask you questions or talk to you or hang out in your class. They can't wait to tell you something that happened to them. The connections and interactions have been the biggest thing that I'm missing as we're going through this process. I would say that myself, and I'm sure most educators would agree, is that we're working harder now than we've ever worked before, because even though, first of all, we know teaching's not a 9 to 3 job. Most of the extra hours we put in, obviously, if we got paid by the hour, we'd all be millionaires, let's be honest. But now our home life and our work life are so intertwined, where you're getting emails at 8 o'clock, you're recording videos, you're setting up lessons. Myself and so many educators, I'm lucky I teach high school, so there's a little bit of independence on their end, where I record videos. I try to give as much normalcy as possible. I record lessons, I tell my bad jokes, I make the inside jokes that we have with each class. My students respond and roast me on Google Classroom, which I love. But at the same time, I could send the assignment. I'm calling home every day. Each day I pick a different class and I call them every week just to make sure nothing's changed, that they're okay, just so I could talk to them. Setting up Google Hangouts and Google Meet sessions just to hear their voice, just so they can ask me questions. I'm setting up Zoom sessions with different people in different fields. Like, we just got off a Zoom session with Emily Hampshire from Schitt's Creek. She talked to our theater students, and it was incredible for them to have those interactions. So it's ironic. I feel like we're more connected to our students than ever before, yet we're more distant from our students than ever before.
Yeah. How many students do you have?
153.
153. So you're trying
153 students.
Individual communications with 153 different students.
I pick each class. I do like one class. One day I'll do 2 classes, but I literally it takes 3 hours, but it's the best conversations because, first of all, the parents, once you let them know we're in this together. And second of all, it allows me to know a lot what's going on. If I didn't hear from a student for 2 days, now I know that, they had an issue with Wi-Fi, or I found out one of my students' mother's a nurse, so they're babysitting while their mom's actually at the hospital doing amazing work.
Right.
So I've gotten to know my students. I've known them well to begin with. We obviously, as educators, we take our time to get to know our students, but I think the connection, and again, I think the role has kind of been blurred as far as we're connected so much more because we are all in this together.
Yeah. So you mentioned, calling in, and if you don't hear from students, maybe you're wondering if they've lost their connection to Wi-Fi. A lot of the submitted questions or comments on teaching right now uh, is comes around ways in which we can communicate with our students. And I know a lot of students lack access to Wi-Fi. And I'm wondering, you speak with teachers regularly, teachers outside of your own school, problem solving issues. What are you hearing about some of the challenges teachers are facing right now? Because I've been hearing a lot about that.
Yeah.
Students who don't have Wi-Fi, so how can we expect them to complete work and check in if they don't have a means of communication?
I think this pandemic's revealed a lot about education and educators. First of all, how undervalued and underappreciated, underpaid we are, but it also, I mean, there's so many amazing educators I follow on social media who are bringing up the conversation about inequity, on how this exposed so much about the inequity in education. That there's such a big gap, less of a gap than we've ever realized before. Most people kind of wanted to push aside, but
Right.
the inequity issue I think is so huge right now. I mean, I teach in a pretty modest community, very diverse. At the same time, I prepare for the fact that I assume my students only have access to their phones. They don't have Chromebooks, they don't have MacBooks, they don't have Wi-Fi. So I try to provide them with opportunities where they can get their work done on their phone. I know a lot of students weren't able to. And again, I'm sure every teacher from my interaction tells you stories about students 2 weeks in, we still haven't heard from. We call home, we interact, and again, our first concern is they're dissing. Our first concern is we hope they're okay. We hope their family's okay. We hope that they have what they need.
Right.
So this is exposed, and again, one of the biggest aspects of inequities in education, that there are a lot of haves and have-nots, and the have-nots are not given the resources that they need to survive and thrive right now.
And when it comes to resources, so often states pair funding to standardized test scores,
Yeah.
and we know that many students are already set up to fail. The way those standardized tests are issued, and how some states and schools, I mean, just really lean into them, and that is what determines a large chunk of their state's funding. And now, during this crisis and this pandemic, we're realizing how we have already set those students up to fail. I think it's shedding a light on that issue to more people. Do you think? I'm just wondering, teacher to teacher, do you think? And someone else asked this on Instagram. Isabel asked, "Do you think there's a hope that we might move away from high stakes standardized testing after this pandemic?"
I think, again, the fact that many states are canceling the standardized testing, people realize how not only unnecessary they are, but how they're not relevant.
Right.
I mean, again, I'm sure you and I both know amazing individuals who are successful who probably bombed on standardized tests. I mean, if we would have tested Picasso and Hendrix based on a standardized test, you would have never known they were geniuses.
Yeah.
But yet we have this very archaic system of evaluating success, especially for teachers. And I'll say this again, they're telling me, a lot of policies tell me as an educator and tell educators that if a student hasn't, if you're a good teacher and a student hasn't eaten, don't have depressed, they're suicidal, they have anxiety, they have a learning disability, that you could get them to do well in the class even if they're going through those issues. You could get them to do well on a test, rather than as teachers we meet them and we focus on those needs first to kind of make sure that they have the skills and the abilities and the support that they need.
Yeah.
I think we will come out of this as educators and education better off, because people realize not only the gaps in inequity and resource, but at the same time, the fact that we've been doing a lot of things now as educators that are not necessary and actually are counterproductive.
I agree with you. A person, Gwendolyn over on Twitter, said grading right now is grading privilege, because you're grading people who have access, maybe who have support systems, who have time. How are you addressing grading and assessing right now?
I'm extremely lenient, meaning I've told them that, more lenient than always. And again, my first concern is always that their safety and their family's safety, now
Yeah.
more than ever. But I'm allowing them to turn in work late. I'm allowing them to find alternative ways to turn in work. I'm exempting them if they miss an assignment here and there. I'm not, because again, like you said, it is grading now is grading privilege, because if you have everything in place, you have a much better chance of doing everything on time, getting it done, because you have all those resources. So I think most teachers, and I would hope most teachers, are being very lenient and very understanding with their grading and even their assignment workload, because it's not the same.
Yeah, exactly. I was just talking with a parent of a former student of mine this morning who has a son with special needs, who has two other kids in the house, all different ages, who also works a full-time job. Her husband has a full-time job.
Yeah.
And I think, if you have just thinking of, one kid in that house, trying to make sure that every single kid has the accommodations that they need, has the time and attention that they need, which, if you have two parents who are working full-time, even part-time jobs, they don't have the attention and the time to give their kids as much as we did when we were in the classroom with them 8 hours a day. How do you think, though, I guess let's transition to talking a little bit about parents. How can parents be helpful to teachers right now? And then what kind of tips do you have for parents who I was just mentioning, who are trying to figure out how to be teachers?
I mean, let's be honest. Parents are almost being our surrogate teacher right now, our substitute in a sense. And I can't imagine how overwhelming it is. I mean, my brother, jokingly aside, called me very upset because he doesn't know how to teach my nephew math because they can't carry the one now with Common Core math. And so, I mean, first of all, the best thing I would tell any parent is call the teacher, email the teacher, get the teacher on the phone, let them know what's going on, let them know that you need our help, because I guarantee you that that teacher will gladly say, let's Zoom with your child. Let me know if I can talk to them. Let me know what I could do with my lessons to help them out. If you don't have certain resources, let me know that and I'll gladly help you. I would say the best thing for parents is to have that connection, that open dialogue with teachers more than ever before. Because honestly, we're selfless people and we're extremely empathetic. If we know that their child needs something extra, they will do it. It's not about equality, it's about equity. Certain students need more resources or more help than other students.
Yeah.
The other thing I would encourage parents to do, which I think we know as teachers, I always tell my students, I thought I knew everything about history once I left Rutgers. I had a master's in history. I didn't realize how little I knew about history until I had to teach other people history. It's like Einstein says, you don't fully understand something until you can teach it to your grandmother. So the best lesson I told my brother, and I tell other parents who do ask me the question, is have your child teach you what they have to learn. It'll be a fun game for them, especially the age. They'll have to learn it because they'll absorb the information because they'll have to relay the information. But it's a fun way to kind of establish a connection, but also have them learn the material at the same time of being able to understand the material, because now they have to teach it to you. I would say let your child play teacher and teach you everything they have to learn, and make it a game. All right, I'm your student today. You're my teacher. I think it's extremely effective. At the same time, it's a fun way to kind of engage and work and get an idea of what they're doing.
Yeah, I love that. I've been telling parents a lot, you might have to get to the point, because I know some schools have just shut down. They're not teaching really, and school continues and curiosity needs to continue, but it might not be linear with what your child was studying in school, but you have to engage that curiosity. So if your kid, loves planets, then let them go wild teaching you everything about planets and researching the planets. And it doesn't have to be in the form of, a PowerPoint or a poster board. They can build you a Lego set of the planets, or they can build a rocket ship out of Legos and then take you on a tour of the planets around your house or something. But you should just ask your kid to look into something that they're curious about. And as a parent, you can do that alongside them as well. You can choose to read the same book together and then talk about it together. But I think the biggest thing is just engaging with your kid and allowing them to be curious.
Also allow them to do it, like you said, what they're passionate about. There's always, my students they're not going to forget everything about history if we don't go back to school this year. It doesn't work that way. At the same time, I'm trying to find ways to make them creative, create historical TikToks, do vlogs, things that are creative where they actually learn the material, but at the same time, they're allowed to express themselves. Because I feel like now we feel so lonely and I feel like everything's internalized. So I try to find creative ways to kind of help their mental health and their self-care, but at the same time, allow them to be expressive and creative. And also say, what are you passionate about? Like, let's find a way to do something that you're passionate about as a student. And I think that's the best thing. Learning's learning. Your brain is expanding, your brain's functioning in a lot of ways. But just because they're not in school and they don't have access to the classroom environment doesn't mean it couldn't be incredibly productive or even creative.
Right. Jody on Twitter asks about creating a specific and structured learning environment, because for her and her kids, the home is usually for play and relaxation. So what tips or ideas do you have about creating more of a structured learning environment in the home?
I mean, I have my brother who's a cop who has my nephew still waking up at 7 o'clock, which I don't think he should do because he's like, I want to keep him on the same pattern. I also think, again, when you work from home, and I think you should allow them some leeway to sleep in a little bit. Keep structure, but you could always transition to structure. So make sure they know that between this time and this time we'll work on this class. Then we'll have recess. Then we'll have play. Then we'll eat. But then we're going to work on work or do some sort of activity this time. Especially if they're working for home. That way, I believe getting them to work at the same time you're doing your work would be very effective and efficient. But it's tough because you want them to maintain normalcy, but at the same time, it's not normal.
Right.
It's so I feel like allowing you could have a loose structure in sense. And let them pick what time. Okay, what time today do you want to work on your assignments? Give them choice, but at the same time, let them know that they have. I mean, teaching them deadlines and goals and trying to get those messages across, I feel like are effective. But having them wake up at 7 and stop what they're doing at 3, I think is extremely harmful.
Yeah. I think something I love doing in my classroom that I think might be effective, but I realize any advice I ever give parents about teaching at home is a privileged statement because I do not have children at home right now. But I
Me too.
love
It's like I couldn't understand. Yeah.
But I loved having a morning meeting with my students because it was a structured meeting. We went over expectations, work expectations, what products will you have done today? And then we continuously review the expectations. And when we went into work time, everybody understood that we leave one another alone when we're in silent work time, that we should, gather all the materials that we need. And for parents who need to go into their home office and ask their kids to maybe go into play or work time, understanding that, hey, maybe all the work is due at 3 o'clock. So by 3 o'clock, play the Xbox as much as you want, watch Netflix, but at 3 o'clock, this is what I expect from you. And then, I'm sure every kid wants to have spring break every week right now. And you can talk to your kids about what they want to do in their free time. But then, of course, there might have to be consequences for when we don't deliver on that work. And I think parents should talk to their kids about what would happen if they just started watching Netflix all day and playing Xbox all day, even though they're supposed to be doing work at home as well. Which is a great lesson for kids. I have to go and do my work and their deliverables and their expectations of me. Same thing for you. I get to structure my time how I want. I saw somebody comment that they call that a family meeting, which I love, but it might be really helpful to have a visual, on the refrigerator or a whiteboard. This is what Alex is working on today. This is what Julia is working on today. This is what's going to be done by dinner time, and then there are other learning opportunities outside of, rote education. They don't have to just be reading and writing all day. Baking is science and math.
I mean, there's so many teachers, so many educators posting videos of them doing STEM activities, stuff around the house to learn STEM and science and math. And it's like, I'm amazed by them. Like, I want to do them. So, I mean, I feel like educators now are working, obviously, overtime as we always do, but trying to find every which way to engage students and make sure they have access to all the resources that they need. And again, when I do call home, I get probably an 85 to 90% turnout of my students completing their work and turning it in. And it makes sense because when you do talk to a student, if they're struggling, they always have that pick me up and they always kind of get back on track. So I would say calling home has been very beneficial because it also lets them know that I care, which I do. My first question is never about assignments. It's always about how are you? How's your family? And then from there, it's like, okay, let's try to get back on track. So I feel like once like those morning meetings are essential. When you sit across from a student, you kind of talk to them, you see their whole demeanor change. So I feel like if parents and teachers could have that constant dialogue, which is tough, it wears, and again, it's exhausting. I don't have children, so I have the freedom to call 153 students.
Yeah.
So a lot of teachers don't, but just trying to find little ways to let them know you're there, recording a video, posting it, just keeping that normalcy, because once they see you, when they hear your voice, I feel like it does give them that kind of that sense of just normalcy, but joy.
I love that. I would encourage parents to reach out, like you said. I think I'm going to ask you in a second, what kind of advice, just maybe one takeaway goal for teachers and parents. And I think parents are putting so much pressure on themselves to be perfect in this scenario. That they have to be the best homeschool teacher possible. And that's just unrealistic if you're working a full-time job and taking care of little kids at home. So one, dial back the pressure. I mean, this is hard on all of us. And I was just saying the other day, it's hard for me to read right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard for me to focus and come out of that anxiety and worry about what's happening in the world. And, that it's hard for adults. Imagine what that's like when they lose all those structures at school and their friends. It's hard on everybody. So dial back the pressure a little bit, but then reach out to the teachers. We studied this stuff and we love being creative and we love coming up with ideas and plans. So I hope parents reach out to their teachers more and use them as a tool. What do you think parents should do? Maybe just one takeaway for them.
I would say be more concerned about their child's creativity, their mental health, and I would say their emotions at the moment. Academics are important, but I think my concern is a lot of students will have some PTSD from post-traumatic stress. And because, I teach seniors. I had a young lady crying to me via Zoom the other day because she's been looking forward to prom. She's been looking forward to graduation. And again, in high school, I know as an adult, we realize that those aren't the biggest moments of their lives, but for a high school student, they are. So right. Just letting them know that, that you're there for them. And I think the parent, like you said, trying to encourage their creativity, find out what they like to do and give them options of pursuing it. My niece loves animals. I showed my brother the app on iPhone, on Google, where you could show you could show a 3D animal in your actual room, which I think is the coolest thing ever. And she's been playing with it, researching animals. My brother's like, this is a lifesaver now. All she does is video herself with different animals and research. So I think now's a great time to kind of find out what your child's passionate about, finding their skill set, finding their gifts, and kind of encouraging them to pursue it.
Yeah. Engage that curiosity, just engage with them. And I think we can find a silver lining in that, right? That we have more time with our families, even though you might want to run out of the house screaming every night. Yeah. But I know we're running out of time. I've kept you. I'm wondering though, just as a teacher, to stop and reflect and think back. Some of the best things that have happened to me in the classroom throughout the years have been the things I've learned from my students. And I'm wondering maybe if there's something that comes to your mind, a lesson you learned. Julia submitted this. Is there a lesson you learned from a student that you remember vividly?
I mean, and I'm not saying this because it's prophetic, I'm saying it's true. As teachers, we try to inspire students, but I find that they inspire me more than ever before. So many lessons about even using certain terminology. I'm the advisor for the Feminist Club, and they call me out often whenever I use terms that I shouldn't be using. And they not call me out, but challenge me, like, Miss Ferroni, we know you're better than that. And that's just on an ongoing basis. But I would just say from the one lesson I learned as a teacher is never take things personally. I think as teachers, if a kid talks back to you, we always like it's disrespectful. But, so many students bring so much to school that we're not aware of. I had students come to my classroom and say F you and F school and flip out. And I didn't react. I pulled them in the hallway. I started talking to them, and I realized that it was something going on at home. I think the best advice I'd give to teachers is it's never personal. Every child, children shouldn't be angry. They shouldn't hate the world. They shouldn't loathe themselves or have low self-esteem. The environment and people around them give it to them. So I think never take things personally. And like you were saying before, my kindergarten teacher said it best. I treated every student like they were going to be president of the United States because they may be. And always overestimate your students' potential, because worst case, they don't live up to it. Best case, they do. Yeah. So there's no such thing as a lost cause when it comes to youth.
Yeah. I just saw a comment from Miss Nikki. She said, they aren't giving you a hard time, they're having a hard time.
You're having a hard time. Great quote. Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah. Which was always helpful for me. I taught 7th and 8th grade. It was never about you. And the thing is, kids come to school, like we say, to be loved or to learn, right? Yeah. And you just got to figure out what's going on in there. It's never about you. And I think it's great advice for parents too. If you've got teenagers at home and you think they're just moody and they're giving you a hard time, there is truth under there somewhere in those emotions, and you just got to find out what's going on. But of course, that requires taking a step back and taking a deep breath, which we're all not perfect at, right? Especially if you've been isolated with those teenagers for
I can't imagine. I couldn't sit through a 2-hour car ride to the Jersey Shore with my parents at this point, jokingly. But I can't imagine how tough. And again, it's an interesting bonding moment for everybody.
Yeah. Well, hey, I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate you using your platforms to elevate the voices of educators and teachers. Right now, I think it's just really important we all stop and say thank
Well,
you. So thanks for everything you're doing in the classroom. I look forward to continue following you and everything that you're doing in your classroom and all of the stories you bring to your platforms of teachers around the country.
well, thank you. But I mean, behind every successful person often stands a teacher who believed in them. And all I do is meet amazing teachers who inspire me. And it's just one of those things where I'm a good teacher, but at the same time, all I do is meet amazing, incredible teachers. And the world is full of them. So thank you
Yeah.
for using your platform to do the same.
Hey, you got it. I look forward to chatting soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chasten.
Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
All right. Great conversation with Nick. He has a great platform. You should follow it. He has conversations with teachers all the time. Uh, we'll keep doing this. We'll keep bringing teachers on and folks in the educational field and parents. I hope we can continue having these conversations about what's going on in the classroom, what's going on at home, so we can all feel a little more connected and start answering some of those questions together. I know it's a really hard time, and like we say every day, just dial the pressure back a little bit. This is hard for everybody. Of course, it's hard for your kids, and it surely is hard on you. So try not to take everything too seriously. Hi, Wendy. I see you just jumped in here. Old teaching friend. Please take care of yourself. Take care of the teachers in your life. It would be great if you have kids in school, send your teacher an encouraging note. Just thank them for all of the work they're putting in. I think teachers are working 10 times as hard as they were in the classroom now, trying to figure out digital accommodations for all of their kids. So it might be nice for you to just send them an email, give them a phone call, thank them for all of the hard work that they're doing. Thank you to all of the teachers who are watching, who have contributed to the conversation on Twitter and Instagram. I hope we can keep doing this very soon. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I look forward to seeing you again on Monday. Take care of yourselves.